From childhood, Willy Wonka's mouth was locked in braces, all because his father was a dentist. Growing up, he never got to taste a single piece of candy. He once secretly hid a few sweets, only for his dad to toss them heartlessly into the fireplace. But fate turned in the ashes. He dug through the cinders and found a piece of chocolate. He unwrapped it and popped it into his mouth. In just one moment, Wonka was completely lost in the magical taste. And from that point on, there was no going back. He went wild tasting every candy he could find, carefully documenting the flavor of each one. At the same time, he quietly made himself a promise. When he grew up, he would make the most delicious candy in the world. But when he shared this dream with his father, all he got was a firm rejection. Furious, Wonka threatened to run away from home. His father coldly said, "If you leave, don't bother coming back. And even if you do, you won't find me here." But Wonka still walked out the door without looking back. He dreamed of a wonderful world waiting outside. But what could such a young boy really do on his own? It was all just a fantasy. With no other option, he swallowed his pride and headed home. But the sight before him stopped him cold. His father had vanished, taking the whole house with him. He really was a man of his word. 20 years passed in the blink of an eye. The boy who was robbed of sweetness had now built the largest chocolate factory in the country. His chocolate craftsmanship stunned the world. Even an Indian prince came all the way to see him, offering a fortune to commission him to build a palace made entirely of chocolate. A sweet miracle rising out of the desert. Every single brick crafted from chocolate. Even the furniture and decor were edible. The prince was lost in this sugary fantasy, but ignored his advisor's warnings.
Yeah, but it won't last long. You better start eating right now.
Oh, nonsense. I will not eat my palace.
As the desert sun blazed down, the chocolate began to quietly melt. The prince, still deep in his sweet dream, had no idea disaster was closing in, until the first drop of melted chocolate dripped onto the prince's forehead. The sweetest catastrophe arrived without warning. That single drop on the prince's forehead signaled the collapse of the entire palace. Sculptures began to warp and twist. The roof came crashing down all at once. A flood of chocolate swept everything away. In the blink of an eye, the desert miracle was gone. Yet this palace only made Wonka more famous than ever. His chocolate empire spread across the globe, beloved by everyone. Every candy he made held a kind of magic, the most legendary being his chocolate that transformed into a bird. But his success drew envy from rivals. They sent corporate spies to bribe factory workers and stole Wonka's most prized recipes. Soon the market was flooded with knockoffs. This broke Wonka's spirit completely. In a rage, he made a shocking decision and let every employee go, then shut the factory gates and kept them shut for 15 years, until a perfectly ordinary little boy appeared. His name was Charlie Bucket, born with the kind of face you'd trust immediately. But his family was dirt poor. This rickety, crumbling house was the only home he had, for grandparents were crammed into that tiny space. The woman who looked like the Red Queen was Charlie's mother. Her daily job was staying home to look after the grandparents. The whole family scraped by on his father's small paycheck from the toothpaste factory, and young Charlie's dream was to become a chocolate king just like Wonka. So he used toothpaste caps his dad gave him to build a tiny model chocolate factory. Every night before bed, Charlie would stare through the drafty roof, gazing dreamily at the mysterious chocolate castle across the way. But the very next day, the long silent chocolate factory roared back to life, running non-stop 24 hours a day, producing box after box of brand new chocolate, each one sealed up and labeled for different countries, loaded onto trucks and shipped all over the world. Yet no workers could be seen anywhere in that massive factory. Nobody knew who was making all that chocolate. But that very night, a bombshell announcement quietly spread around the world. Willy Wonka was back. He declared he would select 5 lucky children from across the globe and invite them to tour the chocolate kingdom. One of them would even win the ultimate grand prize. 5 golden tickets were randomly hidden inside ordinary chocolate bars, each one a golden pass into Wonka's world. The moment the news broke, a global chocolate buying frenzy erupted overnight. Everyone went absolutely crazy trying to get their hands on a bar, hoping they'd be the lucky one. Shelves were stripped bare in no time. Wonka really knew how to create hype. Little Charlie desperately wanted a golden ticket too, but the family was so poor, he only got 1 chocolate bar a year on his birthday. And today was not his birthday. Grandpa Joe muttered that only kids who ate chocolate every day stood a chance. His words crushed Charlie even more. It felt like this was a rich kid's game, and always would be. But that evening, his parents surprised him with an unexpected gift, an early birthday present. He tore it open. It was a Wonka chocolate bar. Charlie was both thrilled and terrified, with the whole family watching with bated breath. He carefully peeled back the wrapper, but sadly, it was just an ordinary chocolate bar inside. Charlie's heart sank, but the sweet, thoughtful boy that he was, he shared every piece with his family anyway. Simple, but full of warmth. Meanwhile, the other lucky winners were emerging one by one. A rich girl used her father's resources to buy out an entire city supply, hiring over 100 workers to unwrap bars day and night. After 3 straight days, one worker finally found a golden ticket. Veruca Salt, the spoiled princess, got hers thanks to Daddy's unlimited wallet. She became the first golden ticket winner. The second winner was Augustus Gluck, the ultimate foodie. This kid inhaled chocolate every single day. He was so greedy he even bit off a chunk of the golden ticket itself. The third winner was a fiercely competitive blonde girl. She'd won 666 prizes on pure stubbornness, but her arrogant attitude made her impossible to like. The fourth winner was a child genius with an IQ of 250. He used precise mathematical calculations and found his golden ticket with just 1 bar. Now only 1 spot remained. Charlie watched with helpless longing in his eyes. Grandpa Joe saw the look and felt it in his heart. He quietly pulled out some savings he'd been stashing for years. He wanted to give Charlie one more shot at the dream. The chocolate was bought. Grandpa and Charlie squeezed their eyes shut tight. But when the wrapper came off, there was no golden ticket again. The cruelty of reality left them both speechless. A poor kid's dream seemed forever out of reach. A heartbroken Charlie wandered the streets with no direction. Suddenly, a glint on the sidewalk caught his eye. A $10 $10 bill was just lying there on the ground. The unexpected find sent his heart racing. His feet carried him straight to the nearest shop without even thinking. Charlie pulled out the money and asked for a chocolate bar. The shopkeeper casually grabbed one for him. And then the miracle actually happened. When Charlie pulled out the golden ticket, the shopkeeper's jaw dropped. The ticket instantly attracted a crowd of greedy adults. A bald man grabbed Charlie and offered to trade his bicycle for it. Then a woman walked over, saying she'd pay $500 for it on the spot. The shopkeeper quickly cut them both off. He told Charlie not to give it to anyone. Just take it straight home. Charlie snapped back to reality and bolted out the door. He ran the whole way home, golden ticket clutched tight in his fist. What he held wasn't just a candy pass. It was a ticket that could change the course of his whole life. When he gasped it out to Grandpa Joe, a miracle happened. The old man who hadn't left his bed in years leaped straight up and broke into a wild, joyful tap dance. Charlie really was born to be a doctor. He just performed a medical miracle at 10 years old. But just as the whole family erupted in celebration, he stepped forward with a serious look on his face.
No. We're not going.
The family fell silent. Turns out he wanted to sell the ticket to help pay the bills.
We need the money more than we need the chocolate.
Such maturity from someone so young, it was heartbreaking. Faced with the biggest temptation of his life, he showed restraint and clarity far beyond his years. It turned out that ever since the chocolate craze took off, more and more people were getting cavities, and the toothpaste factory was suddenly booming. The factory bought advanced machines to replace workers, and his dad was laid off as a result. The family had lost its only income, with 4 elderly grandparents still depending on them. He was willing to give up his dream, just to keep this crumbling family from falling apart. Right then, even the sharp-tongued Grandpa George spoke up. Money runs out, you can always earn more, but there are only 5 golden tickets in the entire world. Miss this chance, and it's gone forever. This is your moment. We're not going to let you throw it away. With his family's blessing, Charlie finally smiled. When the big day arrived, a massive crowd gathered outside the mysterious factory. The 5 lucky winners arrived with their parents, and met the eccentric Willy Wonka for the very first time. His pale face wore a strange, permanent smile, like a character who had just stepped out of a fairy tale. As Wonka pushed open the first great candy door, everyone's jaw hit the floor. Wonka told them the entire valley was made of edible chocolate. A roaring chocolate waterfall thundered down. Candy grass swayed in the breeze. Even the air itself was thick with the scent of sweetness. Augustus Gloop was so stunned he dropped the chocolate bar. In the distance, a group of small workers were busy at their tasks. It turned out that after the factory closed, Wonka had discovered them deep in a remote jungle. These were the Oompa Loompa, who normally lived on insects, but their absolute favorite thing in the world was cocoa beans. Wonka made them a deal, a lifetime supply of chocolate, in exchange for their loyal service. Just as everyone stood in amazement, greedy Augustus suddenly lost all control. He dropped to the ground and started eating the grass, then reached out and began gulping down the chocolate river. Wonka tried to stop him, but it was already too late. Augustus thrashed desperately inside the chocolate current. Wonka watched with pure disgust. He had zero tolerance for a child with no self-control. Wonka's cold indifference was actually the quiet revenge of someone starved of love, a silent judgment on parents who spoiled without limits. Just as Augustus was about to drown, Wonka glanced over, and a giant pipe suddenly appeared, sucking the greedy little boy right up and out of sight. Unconditional spoiling had finally consumed the child it created. The first elimination was complete. A giant chocolate seahorse boat then drifted up along the river. Led by Wonka, everyone climbed aboard. At Wonka's signal, the Oompa Loompa began to row. The boat lurched forward and plunged into a tunnel, shooting downstream at breakneck speed. After a wild and thrilling ride, they arrived at the new product development room. It was packed with the most bizarre and wonderful candies imaginable, like the rock candy designed specifically for kids without money. One piece could last 100 years and still not run out. There was also a toffee that could grow hair on a bald head. One little Oompa Loompa with a bare scalp took a bite, and instantly had long flowing hair down to his waist. But the most incredible invention was the 3-course dinner chewing gum, packed with vegetables, meat, and all the nutrients you'd ever need. One piece was enough to replace a full day of meals. Before Wonka could even finish explaining, the arrogant Violet snatched a test piece and shoved it in her mouth. Wonka warned her not to chew it for too long, but she completely ignored him, and bragged that she was a world champion gum chewer. Wonka just shook his head helplessly. The next second, the tip of Violet's nose started turning blue. The color spread across her body like a wave. Her mother stomped around in a panic, but who told her not to listen? Within seconds, Violet's entire body began to swell uncontrollably, until she blew up into a giant blueberry. Beneath that bloated blueberry skin was an ego inflated beyond all reason, pumped up by her parents' vanity and obsession with winning. The gum was still in the testing phase. Nobody had any idea what the side effects might be. Violet was wheeled off to the juicing room. She became the second child to be eliminated. Next they entered the nut room. But the workers here weren't Oompa Loompa. They were a team of trained squirrels, because only squirrels could extract a perfectly whole walnut. After years of specialized training, they could pick up a nut, tap it gently, hold it to their ear, and instantly know if it was good or bad. When Veruca Salt saw how clever the squirrels were, she immediately demanded her father buy her one. But Wonka made it crystal clear they were not for sale. Without missing a beat, Veruca's expression flipped like a switch. She ignored everyone and charged into the room. But her move sent the squirrels into full-on riot mode. They swarmed her from every direction. As hard-working employees, they had zero patience for someone disrupting their workflow, especially right in front of the boss. Absolutely unforgivable. The squirrels worked together with perfect coordination, pinning Veruca's hands and feet to the ground. One squirrel climbed up, reached out a tiny paw, and gave her head a good knock. Clearly, in their professional opinion, this was a bad nut, so they all worked together and tossed Veruca straight down the garbage chute. Even her wealthy businessman father got kicked down right after her. Wonka then took the remaining 4 up in the elevator, soaring through miles of chocolate mountain peaks, until they reached the high-tech room. The Oompa Loompa placed a giant slab of chocolate onto a platform. The moment Wonka pressed the pink button, the chocolate began to slowly levitate. Then a blinding flash of white light, and the chocolate vanished completely. Charlie's eyes went wide. It was a matter transporter. It could break any object down into millions of particles, and reassemble it at any chosen destination. The chocolate had been beamed right into a television set. Wonka asked Mike TV to reach in and grab it, but the genius sneered, saying only an idiot would stick their hand inside a TV. The words had barely left his mouth when Charlie curiously stretched out his arm. His fingertips pierced the screen, and he pulled out the chocolate, completely intact. Wonka eagerly told him to take a bite. Charlie did. His eyes lit up. It tasted exactly the same. The experiment was a total success, which meant in the future, chocolate could be delivered through your television anytime. Upon hearing this, the self-important Mike TV declared outright, Wonka was a complete idiot. A matter transporter was one of the greatest inventions in human history, and he was wasting it on gross chocolate. He pushed past Wonka before he could react, hit the button himself, and leaped headfirst into the transporter. His body began to float upward. He waved triumphantly at the crowd below. Then another flash of white light, and he was beamed inside the TV, nearly flattened by a book on impact. He emerged thumb-sized. His father plucked him out and sent him straight off to the taffy pulling room to be stretched back to normal. With the last competitor out of the picture, Charlie was the sole winner. Good kids really do have the best luck, and the mysterious grand prize was finally waiting for him. The 3 of them rode the elevator one last time, but then it suddenly went haywire, shooting wildly upward toward the roof. Wonka's face was pure excitement. The next second, the elevator blasted straight through the ceiling and rocketed into the sky. Then the engine died, and it began to plummet. Just when a crash seemed certain, Wonka calmly pressed a button. Flames burst out from all sides of the elevator, and Grandpa Joe finally let out a breath of relief. Back home, the family was anxiously waiting for news, when out of nowhere, the rocket elevator came crashing down from the sky, punching a massive hole right through the roof, adding yet another disaster to an already struggling household.
I think there's someone at the door.
Right there in front of the whole family, Wonka announced the ultimate grand prize, the entire chocolate factory. The whole family stood there completely frozen. It turned out Wonka had recently spotted a gray hair on his head. He realized he wasn't getting any younger, and had been searching for the right person to carry on his legacy. Now Charlie had won. Wonka wanted him to move into the factory. Charlie asked if he could bring his family. Wonka flatly refused. He believed family would only hold you back. If you wanted to build something great, you had to learn to stand completely alone. He himself had left his family behind, and that was exactly how he'd achieved everything. Charlie completely disagreed. He believed family was the most precious thing anyone could have. So he turned down Wonka's offer, right there on the spot.
I wouldn't give up my family for anything. Not for all the chocolate in the world.
The answer left Wonka frozen in place. He couldn't understand how anyone could walk away from a billion-dollar offer. He believed that cutting ties was the price of wearing the crown, but he didn't realize that Charlie's strength came from the very love he himself had always been missing. Wonka was deeply disappointed, but had no choice but to walk away. From then on, Charlie's family grew even closer. His father got rehired at the toothpaste factory on the strength of his skills, and became a key member of the maintenance team. Charlie started shining shoes to bring in extra money. Their lives slowly began to look up, but things weren't as smooth for Wonka. He couldn't stop thinking about why Charlie had said no, and even began questioning everything about himself. One morning, not long after, the two ran into each other on the street. He asked Charlie, what do you do when you feel down and need to cheer up?
My family.
In the end, with Charlie's encouragement, Wonka worked up the courage to visit his father. His father didn't recognize him at first. Wonka awkwardly played the role of a patient coming in for a dental checkup. But the moment his father looked at his teeth, he recognized his son instantly.
Willy. Hi, Dad.
The walls of his father's room were covered in newspaper clippings about Wonka. It turned out his father had been living nearby all along, quietly keeping watch over him from a distance. In the end, father and son let go of the years between them, and held each other close. Wonka tasted something sweeter than any candy he'd ever made. The little boy who had been trapped in the shadow of his childhood was finally set free in that moment. He finally understood why Charlie had made his choice. And Charlie received the ultimate grand prize after all, because Wonka had the entire crumbling little house moved right inside the factory. So from that day on, laughter filled every corner of every room.